Quick question. If your coworker calls you her work husband, insists on riding shotgun over your actual girlfriend, and then begs to sit next to you on a ride, do you think there might be a problem? Because this guy didn't. I'm playing some Minecraft and reading Reddit stories today, starting with this one from User Day of Suck in the Relationships subreddit. My girlfriend of a year got into an altercation with my female coworker during what was supposed to be a fun friend outing. Feeling conflicted. Throwaway because Reddit is my girlfriend's life. She might see this anyway. First off, I love my girlfriend. We'll call her Maud. She's beautiful, smart, motivated, hilarious, and just amazing. Did I mention beautiful? She's beautiful. She's my first serious partner, and really, I can't imagine her not in my life. She makes me food, gives out blowies like it's her job, and has introduced me to a ton of new things. That being said, she isn't all sunshine and daisies. She's very stubborn, and sometimes a huge bitch, for no real reason. The other week, we walked into a restaurant where she looked around, said everyone there was hideous, and just proceeded on as normal. She takes no shit, gives no fucks, and while sometimes that's a hard part of her personality, it's part of why I love her. My coworker is someone I've known for about 9 years. We have lunch almost every day. We'll call her Jen, I guess. We used to hang out more outside of work, but that's tapered off. Jen is 100% not my type dating-wise. Very free love, doesn't care much about her appearance, drugs everywhere. Plus, she has a boyfriend of 4 years. Jen rubs a lot of people the wrong way, but I've never had an issue with her. A little more background. Maud had never met Jen before this incident. There was no real reason for them to meet. Maud already didn't like her based on some information I told her. To elaborate a bit, Jen has referred to me as her work husband for a while, and I told Maud once during a conversation about Jen. After that, she told me flat out she didn't want to meet Jen. The conversation also included how no one really likes or gets along with Jen, and how she had set me up briefly with one of her friends who kind of treated me like shit. On to the day. A bunch of my friends and work friends had planned a day at a local amusement park to get everyone together. Maud was delighted to be invited and made no visible signs of displeasure when I mentioned Jen was coming, so I thought we were good to go. The day comes and we're figuring out rides. It works out that Jen and 2 other coworkers would be in my car. Fine, right? No. Jen goes to get into the front seat, and Maud asks why, since she gets shotgun always. Jen replies, saying, "I've always sat in the front of his car," and again goes to get in. This is where it gets a little embarrassing for me. And maybe I should have just told Jen to get in the back, but I didn't see the big deal. Maud basically says something like, "Hey, not today. I'm the one who sucks his dick," which gives me certain privileges, one being the front seat. So relocate to your appropriate place, sweetie. Not verbatim, but close. Jen is obviously pissed, but gets in the back, and we endure a very awkward hour-and-a-half car ride, although Maud seems like her usual self. The whole day seems to have this weird tension between them, and I can tell both of them are getting more wound up the longer the day goes, but I can honestly not tell you why. I hadn't noticed Jen doing anything inappropriate, or Maud being overtly mean to Jen, so I really just don't know. The big thing came down to a haunted-type ride a few of us wanted to go on. When it came time to get on, Jen begged for us to sit next to each other. It made sense, as there were 5 of us, and she would have been left with a stranger if she didn't get someone to agree to sit with her. Again, Maud stepped in, saying she was sitting with me for reasons, before pausing and saying maybe Jen wouldn't have to beg someone else's boyfriend to sit with her on a stupid ride if, first, her boyfriend cared enough to come, and second, she wasn't so unpleasant. Obviously, this wasn't nice of her, but she doesn't think she was wrong. She's apologized to my friends and coworkers for making things awkward for them, but not to Jen. Whenever I bring it up, she says I'm being oblivious about the situation. All day, Jen was supposedly always next to me, talking to me in a way that excluded everyone else, and touching me on my arm, shoulder, and so on. Maud was angry that I somehow never picked up that this was happening, and she's basically quit talking to me because I'm not sure where she's getting this stuff from, and I can't see her side at all. I like Jen. She's been a friend for a long time, and I think what Maud did was straight out of line. She's never done something like this before, though, so maybe I'm the one out of line. I just don't know what to do here, since Maud is no longer willing to talk about it. There's an update, but I just want to say, yeah, Maud was definitely rude. I'm not pretending the shotgun speech was some masterclass in conflict resolution, but this guy is driving me crazy. Your coworker calls you her work husband, insists on sitting in your front seat over your girlfriend, then wants you specifically next to her on a ride, and your response is basically, "Huh, weird. Wonder why they don't get along." And the way he describes everybody makes me think there might be a lot this guy just doesn't notice. Anyway, there's an update from nearly 3 weeks later. There are 2 things I want to say right off the bat. First, you guys were right. I was being a complete idiot about the whole thing, and my perspective on relationships in general is pretty messed up. Second, Maud wasn't the commenter who left the suck his dick comment on the other thread. She reads a ton of Reddit and tucked it away for use if need be, and by God did she use it when she had the chance. That being said, she also saw my thread. I should have known she would, but hoped to squeak by under the amount of posts this subreddit gets. This might be long. She didn't speak to me for about a week or so after I had posted. I did call her after you all beat into me that I was being stupid. I tried to apologize. I reduced my interactions with Jen and cut my contact down with her as much as possible. Finally, she called me back and agreed to meet at a coffee place that's pretty good for private conversation. She was already there when I got there. When I sat down, she just stared at me, so I assumed I should just lay it all out. When I said I never noticed how Jen was with me, I wasn't lying. I genuinely thought that's just how people were with longtime friends. We used to spend a lot of time together, and there's a lot of history with us, but when I posted, someone left a comment saying I was being strung along by Jen as a surrogate boyfriend, which really got me thinking. I pride myself on being a nice guy. Not like a nice guy, but whenever anyone has an issue, they know they can count on me to help them. I've built an incredibly loyal group of friends this way. It made me think of all the things I've done for Jen over the years. When she goes away for vacation, I take care of her house and dog. When she and her boyfriend fight, I listen and give advice. I sit with her at lunch when no one else will. I give her rides when she needs them to and from work. And I defend her to others. All stuff I'd do for my guy friends. But the difference is, she doesn't seem to respect me because of it. She actually demands a lot from me that I never noticed before. Buying her food and drinks, showing up at parties I don't want to be at so she doesn't whine to me, waking up in the early hours to pick her up when she's too drunk to drive, insisting I buy her birthday and Christmas presents. She gets sad if they're not what she asks for. She often comes to my desk at work to talk and gets huffy when I tell her I can't right now. All of this only really hit me when I posted. She doesn't respect me, or probably even see me as a friend. She uses me for validation and free stuff. She's never given me a birthday present, but she will post on my wall, "Happy birthday, work husband," so everyone can see. I love Maud. She's beautiful and lovely and, yeah, sometimes mean, but I like her mean. More than anything, I love her because she really loves me, which is something I've never had. This is my first real relationship, and I guess a part of me was kind of stuck in a single mindset where I didn't see the significance of someone sitting shotgun or sitting next to me on a ride. I just didn't get it. But now I do. I basically told her that, but more. When I was done, she kind of went, and left. I figured that was it. I made no attempt to contact her after that and kind of focused on what a shithead I am. I avoided Jen at all costs and moped around for a while. A couple of days after we had met, she called to ask if she could come over, which I enthusiastically said yes to. I spent the day cleaning and picked up her favorite dinner stuff. Trying to speed this up, she reamed me out. She started off super pissed and slowly got sadder and sadder as she went on. She cried, which made me cry. She said a lot of things I can't fit in here about how much she does for me and how shitty it is that I don't value her or our relationship over a coworker. Afterward, we held each other in silence for a while. I apologized again, multiple times. She does do a lot for me, and I don't know why she bothered with me in the first place. She's so out of my league. I got us the dinner I picked up, and we ate in a weird silence. She fell asleep at my place, and when we woke up, she seemed happier. We kissed a little, and she said if I'm ever this stupid again, she's going to pull all my insides out, which was a relief to hear, as odd as that sounds. That's when she told me she saw my post and was furious, and also that she wasn't the original "I suck his dick" commenter. I'm posting now because last night I had a work event. A real formal work event, and I brought Maud with me. I made sure to stay with her the whole time and introduced her to everyone as my stunning significant other. Jen was there, and I finally noticed it. She tried to inject herself into every conversation we were having and followed us around the whole event. When we first got there, she ran up and hugged me. Her hands stayed on my shoulders, and she demanded to know why I haven't been around lately. I extrapolated myself and told her I was busy, but she kept pushing the conversation until she finally said, "It's because of your bitchy girlfriend, right? She's cutting you off from your friends now." Mind you, Maud is right there beside me. So Jen is saying this right in front of Maud. It really drove home in my mind how far I let this go with Jen, that she was okay with doing this. I was shocked, but luckily Maud saved me. She just laughed. It was louder than necessary and went on until it was unnatural, but it caught the attention of some other people around us, who leaned in and asked what was so funny. Maud composed herself and said Jen was being hilarious and to ask her about the joke she just made. Then Maud maneuvered us away to another group and was charming as ever. So, a happy ending for a guy who probably doesn't deserve it. Although I was beaten mercilessly in my last post, it's the only thing that brought me to my senses, so thanks to all who commented and made me feel like shit. Okay, yeah. Jen finally saying that directly in front of Maud pretty much removes any doubt about what was going on there. OP absolutely needed the wake-up call, because reading the list of everything he was doing for Jen and realizing he somehow never saw the problem is kind of incredible. Also, I'm pretty sure he meant he extricated himself, not extrapolated himself, but honestly, extrapolating yourself out of an awkward conversation sounds much more impressive. Alright, this next one comes from user ThrowRA Farmer in the Relationship Advice subreddit, titled, Mother who abandoned us in the middle of the night came back after 16 years, and it's killing me inside that my brother and father are too forgiving toward her. My story is a bit long, and I apologize for the upcoming wall of text. My mother and father were high school sweethearts who got pregnant at the very early age of 17. They had me about a month after their prom, and we lived in a rural place that wasn't big enough to be called a town, but was still larger than your average village. Anyway, they settled into farm life after graduating and had my brother 7 years later. She left us when my brother was only a month and a half old. To this day, I can still remember waking up to get ready for school and finding my father on the ground, kneeling over and crying while holding one of my notebooks. I was just a child at the time, and seeing my father curled up like that made me cry too. That's when my father got a hold of his emotions, pulled himself together, and picked me up. She, in her hurry to leave, literally took a notebook from my school bag and wrote her half-assed excuses for why she was leaving us. She wrote about how she never wanted kids, how she shouldn't have gotten pregnant, how things should have turned out differently, and how this small town was smothering her around the neck. She needed to get away. She wrote that the second child, my brother, was the final noose that wouldn't let her breathe. I learned what she wrote in that notebook a year or so later when I found it in the drawers. She left with our truck and had someone deliver the truck back to us about a month later without even sending a word or anything. Just some guy came by and said, "Here's your truck." My father was a mess afterward. He wasn't taking care of the farm. He stopped eating. He started drinking. It was the fact that I stopped going to school to take care of my brother, along with some words from my aunt, who is my mother's sister, and her husband, that finally made him bounce back. But you could see that he was sad for a lot of years. Even after more than a decade, he would still get all closed up around the time she left or around their anniversaries. It was us, Dad and me, who took care of my brother. I'd come back from school, do the dishes left over from breakfast, and take care of my brother. As he got a few years older, I slowly became the woman of the house, so to speak. I'd cook the food, do the dishes, and take care of my brother after school, while my father spent nearly all his waking hours trying to manage the farm. We weren't the richest people around, but with only one depressed adult and 2 small kids, we earned more than what we needed and even saved up a bit for my brother's college fund. My father insisted that I should have one for myself as well, but I was spending too much time on domestic and farm-related stuff to actually focus on my studies. And if I'm being honest, I love the farm, the animals, and taking care of my brother. Anyway, nearly a year ago, she returned to visit her family, including my aunt and us, and apparently she was planning to settle back here permanently. We knew from my aunt that she'd had a good few years of modeling, which eventually led to her joining the staff of some sort of magazine. My aunt still spoke with her from time to time. She tried calling us a few times as well, but I refused to talk with her, and I think she was too ashamed to ask to speak with my brother. When she came back, she apparently had enough money to settle here with a new house and some land. A few days after she returned, she tried to contact us again, after she and my dad ran into each other in the town center. My dad said he told her about my opinion of her, but she insisted. Apparently she owed that to me, and I shoved it right back at her, for lack of a better term, with a few extras on the side. She tried the emotional, regretful parent routine on me, crying and everything, but I didn't buy it. Or rather, I just wished she'd never come back to disturb us. I wished she'd stayed in her airy, breathable big city life and left us the hell alone. My brother wasn't there at the time because he was in his first year of college. He'd been admitted through early enrollment, thanks to him being the lovable genius that he is. I knew my dad was still in love with her. I'd tried to set him up on a few dates before, but it never went anywhere. And that summer, well, this summer, they started dating again, to my dismay and my brother's joy. My dad invited her over to dinner when my brother came back for summer break, and we had a family dinner. I wanted to warn my brother about her, but seeing his enthusiasm, I couldn't break his heart, so I just stayed civil and didn't speak unless I was spoken to. My father had kept that notebook for more than a decade, but I decided to burn it when I was 19. My father and I had a pretty big fight about how I had no right to burn it, but I told him it was better than my brother accidentally finding it and reading how his mother thought of him as a noose around her neck that wouldn't let her breathe. He eventually caved after that, And now, whenever I see her in our house talking with my brother, who looks at her like a genie finally granted his wish, I remember what she wrote. The rage and hatred that goes through my soul is becoming that goddamn noose that won't let me breathe. My brother had a talk with me this morning about me being cold toward her, and it turned heated. He said, "Why wouldn't I be happy? I finally have a mother. We finally have a mother." And I shouted back at him, "I was your mother, not that whore, and I don't have a mother." My brother stormed out of the house crying. Seeing him cry made me cry too, while my father tried to mediate between us and failed. The thing is, I can't tell my brother that I hate her because she detested us, her own goddamn children, because it will hurt him even more. She abandoned and scorned the loveliest, most innocent-looking baby with sky-blue eyes when she was supposed to be a mother to him. I was a goddamn 7-year-old child when I cooed at him and changed his diapers for the first time, with my aunt showing me how it was done, and I didn't resent him. I loved him like a brother, and I loved him like she was supposed to. And now the little comments people make about her and me are just salt in the wound. People comment on how much we look alike. Even my brother once commented on how we looked so similar, smiled like each other, and how she probably looked like me when she had him. It took all my willpower not to snap at him. I know that being this bitter, cold person will drive my brother away, and I know I should stop if I want to preserve this blissful moment for him, even though she's the cause of it, but I can't help it. The worst part is, since she came back, she's not the heartless piece of shit who left us. She never raised her voice when I cursed at her while my brother wasn't around, or when I told her to leave us alone. One time, I asked her if she was avoiding me because I shouldn't have been born at all, and she was trying to fix her mistake by avoiding me. I once even asked her if she thinks about the noose when my brother hugs her. She looked like she'd been punched. Her eyes filled with tears, but she only apologized. She didn't try to defend herself. I can't even enjoy hurting her. She doesn't fight back. She's not the monster I made her out to be. At least she isn't now. And the worst part, the absolute worst part, is that today made me feel so resentful and tired that I don't even have the strength to feel emotions anymore. I actually understand resentment now. Am I truly just like her for resenting my brother for forgiving her and calling her his mother when I raised him myself with a depressed father at home, when I was just a child myself? Or does the fact that my father accepted her back so quickly make me see him as a weak-willed man and question the respect I have for him? Do I resent the fact that I stayed here on the farm and didn't go to college? They even made me skip a grade before my mother left us. Would I have found some sort of new outlook on life at college that would make me more like my brother or father? Would I be happy instead of resentful? I've vented quite a bit, and I'm sorry, but I'm also thankful because I think writing this let me unwind a little. So my question is, what am I supposed to do now? Yeah, I can see why she was angry. Her brother got to experience their mother coming back as something almost entirely positive, while she was carrying memories he didn't even know existed. And she wasn't just his sister growing up. She gave up a huge part of her childhood taking care of him. There is an update, but it came 6 years later. I don't know if it's the postpartum hormones or not, but I had my third son 3 weeks ago, and I've been thinking about my post from years ago and the people who replied. You validated my feelings and even shared your own traumas to lighten my load. I just wanted to share my story with you guys. That night I left to stay at my aunt's place. A few days later, my mother came to see me. For the first time, she wasn't evasive. She looked at me fully, spoke honestly, and said she felt undeserving of the joy she now felt. She promised that if her presence was too difficult for me, she wouldn't visit the farm again. She told me that this was my home, more than anyone else's. Then she said, teary-eyed, that no matter what path I chose, no matter what decisions I made in life, even if I hated her, she would always love me and be there for me. Hearing her say that made something inside me soften. I think I forgave her that day, though I didn't let myself admit it. I returned home that day. I finally stopped making excuses and accepted my boyfriend's proposal. That's a really long story of its own. We got married, and my dad moved in with my mom, leaving me the farm and his truck. I have 3 sons now, and I'm still struggling to believe I managed to fit 3 pregnancies into 5 years. After my first pregnancy, my father and mother started staying around to help. Things became less awkward, and I got used to her presence. The real change happened after I brought my first son home. I was lying on my bed whispering to him that I would never leave him, and that he'd always have me. I saw her watching from the doorway, silently crying. Something in me finally gave in. I cried for an hour while she hugged me. I don't even remember much about what we said to each other, but at the end it felt like finally sitting down after a long day of exhausting work. I missed her so much as a child, but I always felt shame for it. This time, I didn't feel shame. Until that moment, she was always you when I was speaking with her and she when I was speaking about her. But after that, it wasn't awkward or forced to call her mom again. I don't know why or how, but weirdly enough, that's how I started calling her mom again. She's now a doting grandma, trying to relive the moment she missed with my brother by helping me with my boys. I never told my brother about the note she left in my notebook. I realized that if she was truly remorseful, there was no point in revealing it other than sadistic pleasure. And I didn't want to hurt him for something that was out of his control. To those who validated my feelings 6 years ago, thank you. I still think my younger self would be angry, but I would tell her the same thing Mom told me, that no matter what path she chooses, I will love her all the same and be there for her. I'm happy with my decision now. I tried to keep this as short as possible. Thank you so much. Those months leading up to the night I made that post, and especially the 3 or 4 days before my mother came to visit me at my aunt's place, were very dark times for me. Your messages helped me more than I can express in words. Yeah, I definitely didn't expect her to be calling her mom again by the end of this. It doesn't erase what happened, but it sounds like she eventually got to make that choice for herself instead of being pushed into it, and I think that makes all the difference. Okay, this next one would bother me too. The title is, Should I Be Concerned That My Boyfriend of over 1 year has yet to invite me over to his home and meet his family? After more than a year together, never being invited to your boyfriend's home is definitely going to start feeling weird, especially when he's already met her family. This comes from user Cookie Butter Ice Cream in the relationships subreddit. Let's get into it. My relationship with my boyfriend is great, aside from this thing that bugs me more as time goes on. He hasn't invited me over to his house, and I haven't met anyone in his family aside from his mother. Last year, he introduced me to his mother on her birthday, and the 3 of us spent the day together, and it was lovely. That's the extent of my interaction with his family. He also lives with his father and younger sister, and I've yet to meet them. He's met a good deal of my family, and they get along fine. He lives in a city almost an hour away from me, and I've never actually been to his house. We always spend our time together at my apartment. I live alone, so I suppose it's easier to have our privacy here. I also live across the street from our workplace. We work for the same company, so it's convenient for him to spend his weekend here and get to work the next morning without having to deal with traffic. I wonder if the big reason why he hasn't invited me over is because he's still living at home. His family knows about me. He talks to me about them and he tells them about me. But still, no introductions. I have sat him down and spoken to him about this before, about a month or so ago. I asked him if he was hesitant about me meeting his family, or why I haven't been to his home, and told him that this made me feel like he wasn't all that serious about me. But he was just very lax about it. He told me he was serious about me, that I'll meet his family eventually, and he pointed out that I did meet his mother. He also said there really isn't anything to do in his city, which I believe because it has a reputation for being uneventful, and that's why we never hang out up there. For those in relationships, how long did it take for you to meet your significant other's family? I've only been in 2 relationships before, and it really didn't take all that long for me to meet the parents. This is the longest I've waited, though I realize everyone is different. I'm just looking for some perspectives here. I don't know if I'm simply overreacting or overthinking this. Yeah, at that point I could maybe buy the privacy and convenience explanation. But the weird part is that she's directly told him this matters to her, and his answer is basically just, eventually. And unfortunately, 2.5 months later, things haven't improved. It's now been almost 2 years, and there's still no progress. We were texting one evening, and I brought up the fact that I was sad because it was getting harder for me to picture a situation in which he would invite me over to his place or have me meet his family. He said that I shouldn't let that determine my happiness. I said, "It's not determining my happiness, but it's determining my satisfaction with the relationship." He replied, "I'm sorry you're dissatisfied then." We went back and forth for a bit, with me asking why it wasn't an issue for him, and him telling me that I was overthinking things. Then he said, "When the time is right, it will happen." After that, he ended the conversation and said he had to go to bed. When the time is right, it will happen. Hearing that just made me feel like, in the nearly 2 years we had been together, he really didn't see a right time to let me just swing by his place or meet his family. We had plans to see each other the following day after work. He was in my apartment waiting for me since he got off earlier. He was ready for hugs and kisses, but I sat him down and told him how disappointed I was in how our conversation went the previous night. Immediately, he became exasperated and reiterated the usual things. Stop overthinking. It will happen when it happens. You need to be patient. Stop looking too far into the future, and so on. I explained that I put effort into introducing him to my family and close friends because it was my way of saying that he was a person I wanted to keep around. I was serious about him and I was committed. Not having that reciprocated on his end made me feel the opposite of all that, like he wasn't serious about me, even though time and again he claimed he was. I explained that we clearly couldn't see eye to eye on this matter and that I was beginning to understand that he wasn't going to even try to see it from my point of view. I told him that I was a firm believer in taking people as they are, loving them as they are, and not wanting to change who they are as an individual. He was always going to value what he values. Whatever he thinks isn't a big deal will never be a big deal to him, and my values would stay the same. I told him that I could drop the idea about meeting his family or ever hanging out at his place instead of mine, and try to go on with the relationship as normal, but it would eventually pop up and bother me again. At this point, he asked me, "Are we breaking up?" I hesitated for a moment but found myself nodding. "I mean, I guess, yeah." He was silent for a moment before saying, "If that's what you want, this was your decision." He got up and packed his overnight bag. I told him to take his PlayStation 4. He gave me back my key. I tried to give him back the pricey headphones he gifted me for Christmas, but he refused to take them. It was all a blur. I was lying in bed when I heard him leave. This is the embarrassing part. It took about 5 minutes of lying there alone for me to break down and go after him. I booked it. I found him getting into his car. He saw me approaching and rolled down his window. What? I was already tearing up again. I didn't want that to be the end. Someone was walking by, so he suggested I sit in his car. Once I was in the passenger seat, I noticed that he had been crying too. It was weird because in all the time I had known him, he never cried. Ever. I told him that I loved him, that he was everything I wanted, and I was so confused as to why he couldn't do this one thing for me. This should be so easy. All you have to do is pick a day for me to come over. He said he didn't like feeling pressured and basically repeated everything he said earlier. He added that he couldn't tell the future, he didn't like planning things that far ahead, and that he only lived in the present, in that very moment. Eventually, he admitted that it was possible I wouldn't even know where he lived or have met his family by the end of the year. This broke me because originally I had resolved in my head that I would stick it out in the relationship until the end of the year, and if we weren't making progress in integrating me into his life at all, then I would end things. I asked him how that could even be possible. He repeated that he couldn't guarantee anything and he couldn't tell the future. I asked him, "So, if we stayed together 5 years down the line, you think it's possible that I still wouldn't meet your family or go to your house at that point?" He said, "Yeah, it's possible. I'm not saying that's how it's going to be, but I'm saying it's a possibility. You just never know." I don't know if he was giving me such frustrating responses because he really didn't like the way I put my foot down for answers, but it hurt to hear that so much. I started crying again. He reminded me that breaking up was my decision. Pathetically, I asked him if he could just stay, if we could stop arguing and turn the night around into how we originally wanted it to be. He said no. He said that he had been excited to see me, but the damage was already done. I bawled. He was crying again, too. We looked pathetic. He wasn't going to back down. He told me to get out of his car. I wrapped my arms around him as much as I could from where I was sitting, and I told him I loved him. He told me he'd love me too, but he was going to go home. And so I got out of the car, returned to my apartment, and I just cried some more. I'm sorry for how long this is. I just needed to get it all out there. I'm still so confused. Reddit, I just need input, feedback on what you think about my situation. He is a great guy, and he was an amazing boyfriend aside from that one detail he absolutely would not budge on. There's also an edit. Just to add the detail, he still lives at home with his parents. That may or may not be a factor in all this. Either way, I suppose it doesn't matter anymore. And there's one more edit, because a lot of people apparently had the exact same suspicion. A lot of you are suggesting or asking whether he may be married. That's definitely not the case. I'm very sure of it. As mentioned in my original post, I did meet his mother once. We were at a family-friendly theme park, and every now and then she would mention to her son, "When you get married or have kids, they would love this ride," and things like that. Yeah, I don't think the real problem is even the house anymore. It's that after nearly 2 years, she told him exactly what she needed to feel secure in the relationship, and he wouldn't even say he could make it happen within the next 5 years. That's a pretty impossible answer to build a future around. Okay, this next one has a pretty massive decision hanging over it because questioning your relationship is one thing. Questioning it right before you sign a mortgage together is a whole different level. This comes from user spare15015 in the relationship advice subreddit titled, "I, 26-year-old female, am unsure if I need to break up with my 25-year-old boyfriend before buying a house together. My boyfriend and I have been together for 5.5 years. We've been living together for about a year and now I'm questioning everything. Before we moved in together, I already expressed my concerns about always feeling like I came second to his gaming and his online friends. He reassured me things would be different once we lived together. Since moving in, I've ended up carrying almost all of the mental load. I do the cleaning, cooking, laundry, grocery shopping, walk the dog, and basically manage everything around the house. If I want him to do something, I have to remind him 3 or 4 times, and even then, it often doesn't get done. When I ask why he doesn't help more, he says he just doesn't see the mess. A few months ago, I reached a breaking point. I was completely overwhelmed and told him I couldn't keep doing everything by myself. We agreed to divide the chores so each of us had our own responsibilities. The idea was that he wouldn't have to ask me what needed to be done, which would take some of the mental load off my shoulders. It works for about 2 weeks. For those first couple of weeks, he mostly keeps up with his chores, although I still have to remind him occasionally. Then, little by little, everything goes back to how it was before. I end up doing most of the work again. I get exhausted. We have another serious conversation. Things improve briefly, and then the cycle repeats. Another thing that has become increasingly difficult is that whenever I try to have a serious or emotional conversation about our relationship, he tends to shut down. He goes very quiet, doesn't really respond, and I often feel like I'm talking at him instead of with him. It makes me feel unheard and alone, and it leaves me feeling like we're never actually working through the issues together. This has been happening over and over again. I've thought about breaking up multiple times. Usually those feelings pass after a while, and I start feeling content in the relationship again. But then the same issues come back, and I'm right back where I started. Last year we found a house we both loved and signed the purchase agreement. We're due to sign the mortgage and move in soon. But as that date gets closer, my doubts are getting stronger instead of weaker. I'm also starting to realize that it's not just about the chores anymore. I feel more like his roommate than his partner, and I don't feel as attracted to him as I used to. I'm struggling to tell whether these feelings are the result of years of resentment and carrying all the responsibility, or whether I've simply fallen out of love. Is this something that can realistically be fixed, or am I ignoring signs that the relationship has run its course just because we're about to buy a house together? Yeah. The house is what makes this feel urgent to me. Because all of these problems already exist in an apartment, and a house is not exactly going to come with fewer things that need cleaning, fixing, organizing, and keeping track of. And apparently a lot of people in the comments were thinking the exact same thing. One person suggested that she stop doing his chores completely and see how long it took him to notice. But OP said she'd actually tried that already. She said, "I have gone on a chore strike before and he just doesn't even notice. I lasted 1 week before I caved because the house was too dirty and I needed laundry to be done." Yeah, that experiment kind of answered the question. Another commenter told her, "Please, for the love of God, don't buy the house. You've learned this person isn't right for you. You should use that information instead of ignoring it." Someone else pointed out that getting out of buying a house together is way harder and more complicated than getting out of a relationship. And another commenter asked her to think about how much more work she'd be doing in an actual house compared to an apartment. After reading the responses, OP came back with some additional information. She said, "Hey guys, thank you for all the comments. I have decided I'm going to break up with him. I already informed my parents and I can move back in with them." Some more information on the house situation. "We already signed a promise of purchase contract and paid a $15,000 down payment. If we breach this contract, we might have to pay $15,000 more unless the current owner sees no need for it. I tried to contact the realtor, but they are on holiday right now. More information from them on Monday. My parents also recommended contacting a lawyer just in case anything goes wrong. I'll keep you all updated. Also, when would be the best timing to break the news to him?" Okay, so she's made the relationship decision, but now there's potentially $30,000 hanging over the house situation. That is a brutal amount of money to have attached to a breakup. Still, I'd rather find out all of this before signing the mortgage than after. And we do have an update. I broke it off with my boyfriend. I was devastated for a few days, but I feel better and happier now. And I spoke on the phone with the seller of the house, and she told me I can rent the house by myself instead and we get our down payment back. So basically, I got the best possible outcome. Okay, yeah, she really did. People were confused about how the down payment worked, so OP explained a little more. She said, "This is how it works in my country. If you want to buy a house, you have to pay a down payment to ensure that you're actually buying it, and after 3 months, the final documents are signed and the house is yours. If you break the contract, in 99% of cases, you lose your down payment as a penalty for breach of contract. I'm extremely lucky that the seller of the house took pity on me and told me she wanted to help out because she was in the same situation as me last year, hence why she offered to let me rent the place, and we get our money back. Truly 1 in a million. And honestly, that seller came through in a huge way. OP got out of the relationship, got the money back, and can still live in the house without tying herself financially to someone she was already having serious doubts about. One commenter encouraged her to actually live alone for a while and get used to having her own space before entering another serious relationship. And yeah, after 5.5 years of cleaning up after another adult, I think living alone might feel less like an adjustment and more like a vacation. That's all I've got for today. If any of these stories hit a little too close to home, Hey, at least you're getting the lesson for free instead of learning it the hard way. Subscribe if you want more, and I'll catch you next time.